I stood there in the vast ballroom of Thornhill Holdings, feeling like an outsider in this opulent setting. I am Gavin Thornhill, 29 years old, just an ordinary electrical maintenance technician, working day in and day out with coils of wire, circuit breakers, and the pungent smell of machine oil. And this place? This was the domain of sleek suits, glasses of red wine sparkling under enormous crystal chandeliers. The party announcing my father, Lawrence Thornhill's retirement, was held in Sacramento, the city he had turned into his own empire. I wore an old suit, one I'd bought on sale 2 years ago, and it itched uncomfortably as if reminding me that I didn't belong here. I scanned the room. The guests, directors from partner companies, a few local politicians, along with high-level executives, were chatting animatedly, their champagne glasses glistening under the lights. Every conversation seemed friendly, but beneath it lay clever calculations. I tried to find a secluded corner, huddling next to the appetizer table with elaborate dishes whose names I didn't know. My heart pounded, not from anticipation, but from a vague fear that this evening wouldn't go smoothly. My father, Lawrence, never missed an opportunity to display his power, and I, the youngest son, was always the tool for him to do so. Soft music from the live orchestra filled the air, the violin's shrill notes seeming to prolong the tension within me. I saw my mother, Martha Thornhill, sitting at the central table wearing a simple black dress, her head bowed low, avoiding all eyes. She was always like that, silent and resigned, like a ghost in her own home. I wanted to approach her, ask a few questions, but then decided against it. We had never been truly close. She loved my father blindly, and that made her overlook everything else, including me. Then suddenly the microphone crackled, drawing everyone's attention, and my father stepped onto the stage. He was 60 years old, but still robust, his silver hair slicked back, his eyes sharp as knives. Lawrence Thornhill, chairman of Thornhill Holdings, a massive construction and real estate conglomerate in Sacramento. He was a man of immense power, ruthless and ambitious, the type who could crush anyone in his way without batting an eye. I'd seen him fire employees en masse over a minor report error, smiling as they begged and cried. Now he stood there, his voice resonating with confidence, like a king bestowing favors. "Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues," he began, his tone deep and authoritative. "Today is a special day. After more than 4 decades building Thornhill Holdings from nothing, I have decided to retire. Let me recount our journey." He spoke, and everyone listened. He talked about the tough early days, how he borrowed, fought, and turned a small workshop into an empire. I stood there, clutching a glass of water, trying to smile politely. But then came the most crucial part, the one I'd dreaded since receiving the invitation. "And now, I will bequeath all shares and assets to those worthy of succeeding me," he declared, his voice echoing through the room. "Scott and Tanya, my son and daughter, who have proven themselves through their work and dedication." My name wasn't mentioned. Not a word. The hall fell suddenly silent, then murmurs erupted like waves. I felt eyes turning toward me, some chuckling softly, covering their mouths as if watching a comedy. Others shaking their heads, looking at me with blatant pity. My heart constricted, as if squeezed by an invisible hand. How could he do this? I was his son, even if just an electrician. I'd tried, worked hard, but to him it meant nothing. Scott, my older brother, the HR director of the company, stood up immediately. He was 35, tall and groomed, flashing the smug smile I despised. "Thank you, Father," he said loudly, clapping to lead the room. Congratulations poured in. People crowded to shake his hand as if he'd just won an election. Scott had always been like that, scheming, knowing how to curry favor, and never treating me as a brother. From childhood, he'd mocked me for tinkering with toy cars instead of learning business, and Tanya, my sister, 32, the communications director, stood beside Father in a fitted red dress, her long hair in curls. She was cold, looking at me with obvious disdain, as if I were a stain on the luxurious carpet. No sympathetic glance, no comforting word. To Tanya, I was always the extra, the unworthy one bearing the Thornhill name. But my father wasn't done. He turned his head, looking straight at me, his eyes flashing the familiar cruelty I'd known since childhood. "As for the youngest son," he said, his voice rising like pronouncing a sentence, "an electrician isn't worthy of inheriting anything. He's just a disgrace to the Thornhill lineage." His words cut into my heart like a knife. The room burst into laughter, echoing mixed with whispers. I bowed my head, my face burning hot, blood rushing to my ears as if about to explode. The feeling of being stripped bare, humiliated in front of the crowd, made me want to vanish. My hand trembled, the glass nearly slipping. How could he say that? In front of everyone? I had no strength to retort, not a word. I just stood there, swallowing hard, tears welling, but I gritted my teeth to hold them back. This wasn't the first time he'd done this, but this time it hurt more than ever. I tried to breathe deeply, but the ballroom air suddenly felt suffocating. People resumed chatting, but sneaky glances still poured toward me. Pity, curiosity, even glee at seeing someone at the bottom. I remembered long nights alone in the garage, fixing broken things to forget the isolation in my family. My father had always seen me as a failure because I chose a different path, the path of manual labor instead of desk-bound power. Now his words echoed like a curse clinging to me. I clenched my fists, trying to stay composed, but inside was a storm. Anger, humiliation, and a vague fear of the future. Could I continue standing here? Or would everything collapse from this moment? Anxiety surged. I looked at my father once more, hoping for a flicker of remorse in his eyes, but saw only arrogance. I was deeply wounded, standing there like a living statue amid the laughter and glittering lights. The party continued, laughter still echoing. But for me, that room was like a crystal cage, where every glance had sharp edges. Those smiles weren't joyful at all, just masks to hide their fear of being seen through. I felt hot breath on the back of my neck as if the entire hall was whispering about me. Poor kid, a real disgrace. He deserves it. My hands trembled, the glass of water now feeling unbearably heavy, the liquid sloshing and nearly spilling. I wanted to scream, to rush to the stage and ask my father why, but my feet felt nailed to the cold marble floor. Anxiety made my heart pound in my ears. I glanced at my mother once more. She still bowed her head, twisting the hem of her black dress as if trying to make herself invisible. Why didn't she say anything? Why didn't she stand up even once to protect her son? Memories flooded back, family dinners where she was always silent, serving food to my father and siblings, ignoring me like a ghost. Now that silence was like another knife, deeper than my father's words. Scott was still laughing, his smug smile spreading across his face. He shook hands with one person after another, his voice booming. "Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I won't disappoint, Father." He glanced at me briefly, his eyes gleaming with victory as if saying, "You've lost, little brother." Tanya stood beside him, her red dress glaring under the lights. She covered her mouth with a soft chuckle, then whispered something to a guest, surely about me. I felt my face burning hot, blood rushing to my ears, the surrounding laughter like a swarm of bees. The ballroom air suddenly became stifling, the scent of expensive perfume mixed with red wine making me dizzy. I thought of Allison, my wife, waiting at home. She would comfort me, hug me, and say everything would be okay. But deep down I was afraid that my father's words would spread, affecting our entire life. Would she still love a disgrace like me? Anxiety surging, I started moving, my feet heavy as I headed toward the back door. I needed to get out of here, needed the night air of Sacramento to breathe, to forget the humiliation gnawing at every fiber of my being. As I turned, I heard hurried footsteps from behind. Someone was running toward me, and then a familiar voice rang out, firm like a hammer strike. "Stop. No one gets to laugh at the boy." The whole room fell silent, the laughter cut off as if choked by someone. I turned my head, my heart racing wildly. It was Uncle Peter. Uncle Peter Thornhill, 55 years old, head of the company's maintenance department, the only uncle with a conscience left in this scheming family. He arrived late, wearing a simple suit, his salt and pepper hair disheveled, his face flushed with anger. He stepped forward, his voice resolute. stopping the crowd that was laughing at me like a flock of crows. "Do you think this is a joke? A person being humiliated in front of so many just because of his job?" he shouted, his eyes sweeping the room, making some guests bow their heads to avoid them. Anxiety making it hard to breathe, I stood still, unable to believe my eyes. Uncle Peter had never intervened publicly like this. He was always quiet, teaching me repairs in the garage, sharing stories about living decently. But now he advanced, standing between me and my father like a protective wall. His gaze was steadfast without a hint of fear, even though I knew he was facing his brother, the powerful boss. "No one has the right to humiliate a person just because of their status," he declared, his voice echoing through the room. "Gavin is your son, Lawrence. He works hard, fixing the things you all use every day without gratitude. He's not a disgrace, he's the real pride." The crowd murmured, a few nodding, but most stayed silent, waiting for my father's reaction. My heart pounded wildly, anxiety mixed with gratitude. Uncle was risking everything for me. Would father fire him on the spot, or would it explode into a huge argument? My father turned back, flashing a scornful smile, his eyes gleaming with hidden anger beneath a veneer of confidence. He stepped down from the stage one step, his voice sarcastic. "Oh, Peter, my dear brother. Still stuck in that lowly position, head of maintenance for years, and now you intervene?" He paused, eyeing Uncle from head to toe, then laughed loudly. "Failures always pity failures." Those words were like a fuse. The room erupted in laughter again, echoing mixed with awkward applause from the sycophants. Scott bowed his head with a soft chuckle, his shoulders shaking as he tried to hold it in. Tanya covered her mouth, her eyes sparkling with delight, whispering to Scott, "Uncle Peter really is a fool." My mother looked up briefly, then bowed her head again, her hand trembling as she held her wine glass. I felt my face burning hot once more, the humiliation doubled. Now not just me, but Uncle was dragged into it too. Anxiety rising high, I wanted to pull Uncle away, to scream that he shouldn't lose his job for me, but the words stuck in my throat. But Uncle Peter remained steadfast, not backing down. He stood there, broad-shouldered, like an old soldier defending the last fortress. "Failure?" he retorted, his voice calm but sharp as a blade. "Failure is when you use power to crush your own flesh and blood, Lawrence. Gavin isn't a failure. He's the most decent man here, and you know it." The crowd fell dead silent again, the atmosphere tense enough that I could hear my own heartbeat. A few guests whispered, "He's right," but most still laughed along with my father. Father waved for security, his voice ice cold. "Take him out." My heart constricted, anxiety making me want to vomit. I feared Uncle would be dragged away like a criminal. But Uncle ignored it, turning to me, placing a hand on my shoulder, his eyes warm amid the storm. His hand was warm, carrying the familiar scent of machine oil from the days he taught me repairs in the garage by the river. "Nephew, don't let them bring you down," he whispered, nodding slightly like a final encouragement amid that deceitful party. In that moment, I felt a bit of strength return, fleeting though it was, tears streaming down my cheeks. I nodded, my voice breaking. "Thank you, Uncle." Then I turned, walking away, my feet heavy as lead. Behind me were the laughter and awkward applause, my father's loud laugh. "Let's continue the party." I pushed the back door, the night wind of Sacramento rushing in, cool but unable to dispel the unprecedented humiliation. Each step to the parking lot felt like an escape, my mind swirling with images of Uncle standing up for me. Would he be okay? Father wouldn't forgive. He'd fire Uncle, do everything to make him disappear from the company. I sat in my old pickup truck, starting the engine. It roared crisply but couldn't drown out the mocking laughter echoing in my head. The highway was pitch black, headlights flashing past Thornhill Holdings billboards, each one reminding me of the empire I'd been excluded from. I pulled over to the side for a moment, breathing heavily, hands gripping the steering wheel. Tears fell hot. Why, Father? What did I do wrong? Childhood memories flooded back. Times I sat alone in the garage fixing toy cars while the family dined happily. Uncle Peter was the only one who came to get me, teaching me that value lay in skilled hands. Now he was paying the price for me. The drive home stretched endlessly, though it was only half an hour. I turned on the radio, but the music only irritated me more. I thought of Allison, of our small apartment in the suburbs where she was waiting. We'd married 3 years ago in a simple ceremony without my family. She once said, "You don't need them. You have me." But lately things had changed. She often complained about our tight life, about friends with businessman husbands while I was just an electrician. "I love you, but we need a future," she'd said. My heart constricted, anxiety and fear surging. Would tonight be the final straw? I parked in front of the house, the yellow streetlight illuminating the entrance. The window was lit, meaning she wasn't asleep yet. I took a deep breath, trying to smile, but my face was stiff. Opening the door and stepping in, the smell of pasta lingered, the dish she often cooked. But the atmosphere was strangely silent. "Allison, I'm home," I called, my voice trembling. She sat at the dining table, her face expressionless, eyes red and swollen as if she'd cried. Beside her was a paper, the divorce petition already signed, lying haphazardly on the old wooden table. My heart stopped. "What's this?" I asked, stepping forward, anxiety surging like falling into an abyss. Allison stood up, her voice cold and weary. "Gavin, I can't go on anymore. I can't live with someone who has no future, no status." Her words cut like a knife, echoing in the cramped room. I looked at the paper, her signature clear, the blank space for me. Why are you doing this? We can talk about it." I tried to explain, my hand reaching to touch her shoulder. "The party was awful, my father, but I'll be okay. We'll get through it together." But my words only made her angrier. Her eyes flared, tears streaming. "Get through? How many times, Gavin? You always promise, but what's the reality? Your father humiliated you in front of everyone, your family abandoned you, and I'm tired of living in that shadow." She threw her wedding ring onto the table, the metallic clink piercing. "I once loved you for your sincerity, but now I see clearly. You can't change. I need a future, not a disgrace." Tears mixed with blame, she shouted, "You're a failure, like your father said. I don't want to be part of it anymore." The argument escalated, words flying back and forth like a storm. I begged, "Don't go, Allison. I love you. Think about the memories, our wedding day, those beach trips." She shook her head. "Memories don't sustain us, Gavin. I've waited long enough." Anxiety turning to desperation, I tried to hug her, but she pushed me away, pulling a suitcase from the bedroom, packed and ready, as if waiting for this moment. "Goodbye," she said, her voice breaking, stepping out the door without looking back. The door slammed shut, the lock clicking, echoing. The house sank into deadly silence. I slumped at the table, staring at the divorce paper, my trembling hand touching the signature. The world had just collapsed, honor shattered at the party, family turning their backs, love vanishing in one night. I held my head, tears pouring, loneliness enveloping like darkness. Memories with Allison flooded, her smile on our first meeting, nights holding each other to sleep. Now it was just me, alone in the cold house. I collapsed onto the floor, breathing raggedly, my heart aching. That night stretched endlessly, each second like a century. I thought of Uncle Peter, the only one left. Would he call, or had Father fired him? Anxiety and despair intertwined. I closed my eyes, praying dawn would bring hope. But deep down I knew the storm was just beginning. That night I couldn't sleep. Sitting in the pitch-dark house with only the streetlight filtering through the thin window curtains. My heart raced wildly, anxious as if waiting for another nightmare to strike. Childhood memories flooded back like a tide, sweeping everything away, plunging me into old, worn-out pain, but also the only remaining source of light. I saw myself, 8-year-old Gavin, standing in front of the dim garage of the large house in Sacramento. My hands were covered in grease, blackened and sticky as I tried to fix the old toy car that my brother Scott had thrown away, sneering, "It's broken, that piece of trash." Laughter echoed from the living room, warm but distant, as if from another world. My father, Lawrence, sat at the head of the table, his voice booming as he recounted a big contract he'd just signed. My brother Scott, 13 at the time, laughed along. "Dad, you're amazing. I'll follow in your footsteps, become a big director." My sister Tanya, 10 years old, chimed in. "Me too, Dad. I'll manage everything." And me? I was his son, even if I was just an electrician. I was his flesh and blood, though to him it meant nothing. I'd tried, worked hard, but to him it was worthless. The memories surged, anxious as if awaiting a different ending, but no, everything always ended in isolation. During those family dinners, I often sat at the end of the table like an uninvited guest. No one asked about me, my words always drowned in their laughter. Father would talk about the company. "Today I signed a $1 million deal, see how great I am." Scott would cheer, "Dad's a superhero." Tanya would laugh, "Dad's the king." And if I opened my mouth, "Today I learned how to connect wires at school," Father would interrupt, "Wires? Shut up, don't ruin the meal." Mother would only serve food to her husband and the older kids, never once glancing at me or speaking up. "Mom, pass me a piece of chicken," I'd whisper once, my voice trembling with anticipation. She'd glance over but then turn away, serving Scott. "Eat more, son. You'll be tired from studying tomorrow." My heart ached, tears silently falling into my plate. Why was Mom so silent? She loved Dad blindly, but why didn't she love me? That memory made me sit up in the darkness, wiping tears. "Mom, I exist. Why don't you see me?" Once I brought home a certificate of merit, my hands shaking with excitement. "Dad, I got praised for fixing a science model at school." I ran in, holding up the bright red paper. Father glanced at it, then tossed it on the table. "A certificate? Fixing a model? That's not an achievement, Gavin." Scott brought home a math award. Tanya won a speech contest. Those are things to be proud of. You, just go play in the garage. He turned away, smiling at my siblings. "You two are the future of Thornhill." I stood there, the paper falling to the floor, tears streaming. "But I tried, Dad." No one heard. Scott smirked. "A fixing certificate? Throw it away, bro," Tanya added. "Yeah, don't dirty the dinner table." Mom stayed silent, clearing up without looking at me. In that moment, I ran to the garage, crying alone, anxiously waiting for someone to comfort me. And then, the sound of an old pickup truck echoed. Uncle Peter arrived. In times like that, I could only wait for Peter Thornhill, the kind uncle who drove his old pickup to pick me up and take me to his small house by the American River. "Uncle," I'd cheer, running out to hug him. He'd smile, his voice warm. "Nephew, how was today?" "Get in the truck. Let's go home and fix stuff." Back then, he was younger, his hair not yet gray, his hands calloused from labor. He'd teach me how to hold a wrench, connect wires, and most importantly, how to live decently in an unfair world. "Look at this, Gavin," he'd say, holding the wrench. "Tighten it firm, but not too much, or it'll break. Life's the same. Patience, kid." I'd sit beside him, hands greasy, laughing. "Uncle, I fixed it. See?" He'd nod. "Great job. You've got golden hands." Those days with Uncle were the rare times I felt like laughing, eating dinner in a peaceful atmosphere. He'd grill simple meat and we'd sit by the river, the cool breeze blowing. "Tell me how things were at home today, kid." I'd tell him, tears falling. "Dad said I don't fit in, Uncle." He'd hug me. "Don't be sad, Gavin. Your dad's busy, but you're special. Real value is in hands that can create, not titles. I'm proud of you." Peter always listened, teaching me patience, how to fix every little detail. "See this screw? Small but important. People are like that. Be kind to everyone, no matter how they treat you." I'd nod, anxiously asking, "Uncle, why aren't you like Dad?" "Why stay in the garage forever?" He'd smile sadly. "I chose this, kid. Power changes people, but I want to live true. You'll do the same. Stay strong." Memories of the small house by the river, the smell of machine oil and Uncle's laughter remain vivid in me, the only light illuminating my forgotten childhood. Now, in this pitch-dark house, I whisper, "Uncle, I miss you. You're like a second father to me." That memory brings a bit of warmth, but also anxiety. Would Uncle be okay after the party? Father won't forgive, he'll make sure of it. I sit up, looking at the clock, 3 in the morning. The night stretches endlessly, memories continuing to flood like an old film reel. I lay there, staring at the mottled ceiling, trying to sleep, but in vain. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of Allison dragging her suitcase out the door resurfaced, her voice echoing, "I'm so disappointed in you, Gavin." Then my father's words from the party. A disgrace to the family line. My heart pounded wildly, anxious as if awaiting a knock on the door or a phone call bearing bad news. I thought about Uncle Peter. He had stood up for me, declaring to the crowd, "No one has the right to humiliate a person just because of their status." Father certainly wouldn't let it go. He would fire Uncle, do everything to make him disappear from Thornhill Holdings. "Uncle, please be okay," I whispered, my hands clutching the bedsheet tightly. That night I tossed and turned, childhood memories intertwining with present pain, like an endless loop with no escape. Dawn finally peeked through the curtains, but I still lay there, exhausted and empty. The days that followed were hell. I tried to get up, to keep living after the shock of losing everything. Honor trampled at the party, family turning their backs long ago. Love shattered in a single night. Everything felt like a prolonged nightmare. I still went to work, repairing wiring at small construction sites around Sacramento. Hands stained with machine oil, but my mind was always spinning. "You okay, Gavin?" a coworker asked, voice concerned. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." But I wasn't. Every evening returning home, the empty apartment seemed to swallow me whole, evoking Allison's silhouette. I called her a few times, voice trembling. "Allison, can we talk?" I was wrong. "I'll change." But she only replied coldly, "Don't call anymore, Gavin. I've made up my mind." Then hung up. I sat silently in the darkness, heart constricting, tears falling before I could wipe them. I waited for a miracle, a text, a call, or just a word of forgiveness, but nothing came. Sometimes I imagined confronting my father, shouting, "Why did you do this to me?" But I knew he'd only smirk, like that night at the party. I tried contacting Uncle Peter, texting, "Uncle, are you okay? Did Dad do anything to you?" He replied briefly, "I'm fine, kid. Don't worry. Focus on living." But I knew he was hiding it. His voice over the phone sounded weary, as if under pressure. "Have you been fired yet?" I asked, anxious. He chuckled. "Not yet, but your uncle's brother is furious. Don't overthink it, Gavin." Those calls were the only light, but they also made me worry more. After a long time trying to rise from the shock of losing everything, about 2 months, when winter began in Sacramento with withered leaves covering the streets, I received an urgent call from Uncle Peter. The phone vibrated at midnight, the screen showing his name, making my heart race. "Hello, Uncle," I answered, voice trembling with anxiety. "Gavin, come to my house right now," he said, tone decisive but full of worry. "It's urgent. Don't ask. Just come." I sat up, heart tightening. "Are you okay?" "What's wrong?" He sighed. "You'll know when you get here." "Hurry, nephew." The call ended abruptly, leaving me in the darkness, anxiety surging. Had Dad done something to Uncle? Or was there bad news about the family? I threw on clothes, drove the old pickup through deserted streets, cold wind whipping my face through the cracked window. The road to Uncle's house by the American River stretched endlessly, each mile prolonging the worry. "Uncle, please be okay," I whispered, hands gripping the steering wheel. Party images flashed back. Uncle standing protectively, Dad smirking. I parked in front of the small wooden house, lights blazing despite the late hour. Uncle opened the door immediately, face pale, eyes red as if he hadn't slept. "Come in, kid," he said, voice low. "I have something to show you." As I stepped inside, we sat at the old kitchen table. Uncle poured hot coffee, hands trembling. "Nephew, I've been renovating your grandfather's old wooden house, Harold Thornhill's," he recounted, voice slow but emotional. "It's been abandoned for years on the outskirts of Sacramento. I thought I'd fix it up to live in, but by chance, I found an ancient wooden chest hidden carefully under the floor." My heart pounded hard, anxiety rising. "What chest, Uncle?" "Why hidden under the floor?" He took a deep breath. "I was removing the rotten floorboards when I found a secret compartment. The chest was old, lock rusted. I had to use a small crowbar to open it. Inside," he paused, retrieving a small wooden box from the cabinet and opening it. Inside was a yellowed handwritten letter, along with a sealed stack of documents bearing Grandfather Harold's faded signature and seal. I picked them up, hands shaking. This is Grandfather's?" Uncle nodded. "Exactly. His signature. I recognized it immediately. But brace yourself before reading." Before reading the letter, memories of Grandfather flooded back. The image of the kind man who always smelled of machine oil, who took me around the factory when I was little. I remembered clearly at 6 years old Grandfather hugging me. "Gavin, grandson, come with me to see the factory." We walked around. He pointed at machines. "This company only survives when people are honest, kid. Don't be like your father, too ambitious." He smiled, calloused hand ruffling my hair. "You take after me, liking to tinker and fix. These hands will make something great." I laughed along. "Grandpa, teach me to fix." He taught me simple screw turning, voice warm. "Patience, grandson. Honesty is the key." That memory was warm, but now it brought tears. "Grandpa, why did you leave so soon?" "He died 14 years ago, suddenly from a heart attack, leaving the will to Dad for the entire company. Or at least that's what everyone thought." Now holding the letter, my heart pounded, anxious as if touching a buried past. I opened the letter. The old paper rustled, Grandfather's handwriting shaky but clear. "To my son Peter and grandson Gavin," it began, startling me. Grandfather wrote to Uncle and me? Harold wrote that he felt his life was threatened and suspected Lawrence, his eldest son, was secretly manipulating the will to seize full control of Thornhill Holdings. "I've noticed Lawrence acting strangely, son," he wrote. "He visits more often, asks about the will, brings strange medicine. I suspect he wants all the assets. If I die suddenly, don't trust the announced will, it might be fake. If one day the truth is distorted, find my old secretary, Margaret Ellis. She holds the authentic documents and knows the whole story. Margaret is loyal. She has copies. Find her. Bring the truth to light. Love you both, Harold." I read to the last line, heart pounding, a mix of shock and rage. Grandfather's words echoed back from the past. "Grandpa," I whispered, tears falling. Dad manipulated the will? You were threatened?" Anxiety making it hard to breathe, I looked at Uncle. "Uncle, is this real?" "Dad, Uncle Peter nodded, eyes red. "I've done a preliminary check. The signature and seal match exactly what I remember of him. But we need more evidence to confirm, perhaps an expert appraisal." We sat in silence, the small house's atmosphere heavy, only the sound of the American River flowing gently outside. Uncle and nephew looked at each other, in our eyes pain and determination. "Uncle, what do we do?" I asked, voice trembling. He patted my shoulder. "We have to find Margaret Ellis, kid. We've just touched a secret buried for 14 years. The journey to seek justice for Harold Thornhill officially begins. But be careful. Your uncle's brother won't let it slide if he finds out." My heart pounded wildly as if it were about to leap out of my chest. Grandfather's letter lay on the table, the yellowed paper like a whisper from the grave, leaving me stunned to the point where my hands and feet turned ice cold. "Grandfather, you suspected my father of manipulating the will? Even threatening your life?" I whispered, my voice breaking with a mix of rage and fear. Uncle Peter nodded slowly, his face creased with pain. "Grandfather wrote it clearly. Lawrence, my brother, has always been ambitious. From a young age, he was jealous because grandfather loved me more since I was like him, preferring manual labor over desk work. Now we have to prove it. But don't rush, son. We need a plan. We sat until dawn, the coffee growing cold on the table, discussing every step. First, find Margaret's address, Uncle said. She was grandfather's secretary for 30 years. She knows everything. I still have his old address book. I nodded, anxiety surging. If she confirms it, we'll have evidence. But if Dad finds out, what will he do, Uncle? Uncle smiled sadly. Lawrence will crush us like he always does. But this time we have grandfather on our side. His words gave me a bit of strength, but deep down I was afraid of facing the truth that my father could be a manipulator, or even worse. The next day we tracked down the old address of Secretary Margaret Ellis, who had worked for grandfather for many years. Uncle found it in grandfather's old notebook, a worn leather book full of handwritten notes. She's in Modesto, the suburbs, Uncle said. 2 hours drive from Sacramento. I tried calling, but the old number's disconnected. We have to go in person, I nodded. Let's go, Uncle. I'll drive. The journey to Modesto was filled with anxiety. The highway winding through withered golden fields under the autumn sun, but my mind spun with questions. Is she still alive? What will she say? What if she refuses? I asked Uncle, hands gripping the steering wheel. He sighed. We have to convince her. And I believe she'll tell the truth. She was very loyal to grandfather, kid. After hours of driving, we pulled up in front of a quaint little house in the suburbs of Modesto. We got out of the truck, my heart pounding like a drum. Uncle, what if she doesn't open the door? I whispered. Uncle knocked. Margaret, it's Peter Thornhill. Slow footsteps sounded, then the door opened a crack. Margaret, now over 70, with snow-white hair and a frail body due to poor health, but her eyes still sharp and alert. Peter? Oh my goodness, you're still well, she said emotionally, voice trembling, opening the door wide. And, Gavin? You've grown so much? She hugged me, tears streaming. You look just like your grandfather, the hair, the calloused hands. We entered the house, the atmosphere cozy with the faint smell of baked goods. She sat on the old sofa, hands trembling as she held her teacup. Why have you two come here? After all these years. Uncle Peter took out the letter, voice serious. Mrs. Margaret, we found this. It's from Harold. She took the letter, eyes widening, lips stammering, speechless. Margaret, deeply moved, recounted with a trembling, emotional voice. After Harold passed away, Lawrence and the lawyer, Mr. Richard Hale, called me to the office the very next day. They told me to sign a confirmation, saying Harold had voluntarily made a new will before dying. I read it, and my heart nearly stopped. It was clearly a forged document, prepared in advance to legalize the fake will. Harold never changed his will. He was adamant about leaving it to Peter and grandson Gavin. She paused, wiping tears. I knew everything because I typed the real will. But they threatened me. Loss of job, loss of reputation, even threats to my life if I didn't sign. I was scared, so I signed in silence. May God forgive my sin. She spoke while clasping her hands in prayer. My heart ached, anxiety rising. Ma'am, why did they do that? What was the real will like? She looked at me, voice moved. The real will Harold signed left all shares to Peter because he believed Peter would uphold the company's values of honesty. And for you, Gavin, he included a clause for inheritance of a scholarship and a portion of assets upon adulthood. He said you were like him, destined to achieve great things through honesty and perseverance. I clenched my fists, rage mixed with shock. So my father, he destroyed the original? She nodded, voice trembling. Yes. Lawrence and Richard destroyed the original right after the funeral, then replaced it with the fake will stating all assets transferred to Lawrence to maintain the company. They forced me to confirm, and I was cowardly. For 14 years I've been tormented but afraid of Lawrence. He's too powerful. Uncle Peter asked, "Do you still have a copy?" Margaret admitted she once kept a notarized copy in her personal safe, but years ago her house was burglarized and that document was lost. "I suspect it wasn't an ordinary theft," she whispered. "Perhaps Lawrence knew and hired someone, but now I have nothing, just my account." Though she no longer had the copy, her account matched perfectly with the contents of Harold's letter, giving us grounds to expand the investigation. "Thank you, ma'am," I said, voice choked. "You're so brave." She hugged me. "Do it, grandson. For Harold. He deserves to rest in peace." On the way back, uncle and nephew began facing the reality that this fight was not just about finding evidence, but about overturning an entire past concealed by power and money. "Lawrence won't stop," Uncle said, voice low. "He has money, lawyers. We only have the truth." My heart raced. "But we have to continue, Uncle. For Grandfather." Uncle nodded, eyes gazing far toward the American River shimmering under the setting sun. "Yes, nephew. But be careful. He'll sniff it out. We need more evidence. Solid, undeniable." I gripped the steering wheel tightly, anxiety surging like waves. Margaret's words still echoed. "Lawrence threatened me, destroyed the original." And now we were walking into the tiger's den. "I won't let him win," I whispered, voice trembling with rage. Uncle patted my shoulder. "I believe in you. But patience, Gavin. That's what Grandfather taught us." The following days were a nightmare of anxiety. We returned to Sacramento, trying to live normally. I went to work fixing wiring. Uncle still showed up at the maintenance shop. But our minds were always stretched taut like a wire. Every morning I checked the truck before driving, afraid of anything unusual. Too paranoid? I laughed at myself, but then remembered Uncle's words. Better safe than sorry. We met secretly at his house, analyzing Margaret's account, listing next steps. "Authenticate the letter's signature," Uncle said, "and the will announced in court." I nodded. "I'll file the request." But deep down, fear crept in. What if Dad found out? He had eyes and ears everywhere in Thornhill Holdings. A few days later, everything exploded. Early morning, Uncle called me, voice panicked. "Gavin, come to my house now." I rushed over, heart pounding. Uncle stood at the door, holding an anonymous white envelope, face pale. "This slipped under the door at midnight," he whispered, handing it to me. Inside was a typed note. "Stop now before it's too late." All caps, no signature, but enough to freeze my blood. Who sent it?" I asked, voice shaking. Uncle shook his head. "No idea. But clearly Lawrence knows we're digging." Anxiety surged. I looked around. The street was empty, but why did I feel watched? "Uncle, we're in danger," I whispered. Uncle squeezed my hand. "Yes. But don't be afraid. This is proof he's panicking." It didn't end there. The next morning I went out to the truck to go to work, the old pickup parked in front of the house, and found the tires flat, windshield shattered, and the paint scratched with crude letters. "Stop." My heart constricted, anxiety choking me. Strangers trashed my truck," I called Uncle, voice breaking. He replied over the phone. "Definitely not random." My mailbox today was full of junk messages, anonymous letters. In the middle of bustling Sacramento streets, I felt hunted. Dad did this?" I asked, rage mixed with fear. Uncle nodded. "Or hired someone. He knows we met Margaret. He's been watching us," Uncle said. "Since the party, he suspected." I clenched my fists. "I want to confront Dad now, face to face, force him to admit it." But Uncle shook his head, voice firm. "Not yet, Gavin. Don't rush. We need solid evidence. Meeting now will only make him more guarded and more dangerous for us." I listened to Uncle, though my blood boiled. "Fine. We'll follow the plan." I filed the request to re-examine Grandfather's will that same week. I went to the Sacramento County Courthouse, hands trembling as I held the petition. Request for digital signature verification technology on the will announced upon Harold Thornhill's death. The court clerk looked at me strangely. "What's your reason?" I swallowed hard, replying, "I suspect the signature on my grandfather's will is forged." The days waiting for the results were mental torture I thought I couldn't survive. I tossed and turned sleeplessly. When I dozed off briefly, grandfather's image appeared as if urging me to stay strong. Finally, the results arrived, a thick envelope from the forensics lab. We opened it at Uncle's house, hands shaking. "The signature is forged," the report stated clearly. "Copied from an older document, not Harold Thornhill's authentic handwriting. 98% match with simulated sample." I froze, then shouted, "It's fake! The will Dad announced is fake." Uncle hugged me, tears streaming. Grandfather was right. Lawrence manipulated it. This discovery left us stunned but strengthened our belief that we were on the right path. "Now we have scientific proof," Uncle said, "undeniable." Anxiety turned to determination. We pressed on, while reviewing financial records. Uncle secretly obtained from company archives. I checked old bank statements through friend connections. We found a bank statement showing Richard Hale, Lawrence's lawyer, received a large sum right after Harold's funeral. $500,000, Uncle read, voice trembling, transferred from Lawrence's personal account, noted as consulting fees. My heart pounded. Bribery! To destroy the real will? Uncle nodded. Exactly. Richard was his pawn. This discovery was like a bomb. "Do we have enough evidence yet, Uncle?" I asked, anxious. Peter concluded we had sufficient legal grounds to forward the file to the prosecutor. Grandfather's letter, Margaret's testimony, signature verification, bank statement. "We can sue," Uncle said, "for will forgery, perhaps more." I told Uncle, "I want to confront Dad one last time. Force him to admit it in front of the family, Scott, Tanya, Mom. I need to hear him say it." Uncle looked at me for a long time, then asked, "Are you sure? It's dangerous." I nodded, voice firm. "I'm sure, Uncle. This isn't just justice, it's to escape that disgrace shadow." Peter understood me and agreed to come along because he knew this wasn't just a confrontation, but the moment that would define who I truly am. "All right, nephew," he said. "I'll go with you. But prepare yourself." Lawrence won't admit easily. That Saturday arrived faster than I expected. We drove my old pickup truck to the Thornhill Mansion, a massive estate on the outskirts of Sacramento, where I grew up but never felt I belonged. The familiar road lined with towering oaks now made me anxious to the point where my hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles turning white. "Uncle, I'm so nervous," I whispered. Uncle Peter sat beside me, voice reassuring. "We have the truth on our side, Gavin. Grandfather will protect us." The tall iron gate opened when the guard recognized us, but his eyes were cold, as if saying we weren't welcome here. I drove past him, parking in front of the wide granite steps where perfectly trimmed potted plants stood under the weak afternoon sunlight. I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the trembling inside, and stepped onto the porch. The front door opened, and Lawrence Thornhill stood there. My father, with his familiar arrogance and eyes cold as a blade. He didn't greet us with a warm smile, just stood still like a statue of power. He wore a glossy black suit, silver hair slicked back, a scornful smile on his lips. "Peter, Gavin," he said, voice drawn out with sarcasm without a hint of warmth. "Long time no see. Come in, though I didn't invite you." He didn't shake hands, no greeting, just a disdainful wave as if we were unwanted guests. I swallowed hard, following Uncle into the grand foyer, where the enormous crystal chandelier illuminated expensive paintings on the walls. The scent of luxury perfume mixed with polished wood made me dizzy, evoking memories of those cold family dinners long ago. Scott and Tanya weren't there, perhaps at the office or worse, avoiding us, while my mother sat on a distant sofa, head bowed low, twisting the hem of her simple black dress. She glanced at me briefly, eyes red, but said nothing, as always, choosing silence to avoid conflict. We sat in the vast living room where the glossy walnut table reflected the lights. I placed the document briefcase on the table, hands trembling slightly with anxiety. "Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "we have something to discuss." Lawrence sat at the head of the table, legs crossed, smug smile still on his lips. "What is it? Begging for a job again, Gavin? Or does Peter want a promotion to head of maintenance?" he mocked, voice echoing in the quiet room. Uncle Peter spoke first, voice calm but firm. "That's not it, brother. This is about Grandfather Harold." Lawrence raised an eyebrow, expression unchanged. "Harold? He died 14 years ago. Why dig up the grave now?" I took a deep breath, pulling the signature verification results from the briefcase and sliding them across the table. "The will you announced is forged," I said, voice trembling with rising rage. "The signature was copied from an old document, not Grandfather's real handwriting." Lawrence picked up the paper, glanced at it quickly, then suddenly burst into laughter. His laugh echoed through the room, cold and full of contempt, making my heart constrict. "Forged? Digital recognition technology," he repeated, voice drawn out with sarcasm. "With money and power, I can make any result disappear. You think that lab is independent? I can buy them all, judges, experts, the press. Thornhill is mine, and nothing will change that." He threw the paper onto the table, scattering it across the marble floor. I froze, rage surging like fire in my chest. "Dad, how can you say that?" I asked, voice breaking with shock. "This is about Grandfather. Your own father. He was harmed, and you know it. We have Margaret's testimony, bank statements to Richard, all proving you manipulated the will." My father stood up, eyes flashing with anger hidden beneath arrogance. He denied every accusation, voice rising and defiant. "Handwritten letter? Margaret's testimony? All fabricated. She's senile. Did you coerce her? And the bank statement to Richard? That's legitimate consulting fees. Do you have proof I bribed him? Nothing. You and Peter are just failures trying to steal my share with cheap slander." Uncle Peter interjected, voice still calm but sharp. "Brother, you know Margaret was loyal to Grandfather. And Richard received $500,000 right after the funeral. That's no coincidence. You destroyed the real will to seize the company." Lawrence laughed louder, the sound booming like thunder. "Coincidence or not, prove it. Remember, no one challenges me and comes out unscathed." He challenged us, stepping closer to me, hot breath on my face. "What do you want, Gavin? Money? A menial job? Or are you still the disgrace-seeking revenge for that party? I gave you a chance to live separately, yet you come back to bite." Then he turned away coldly, waving us off like flies. "Get out. Don't come back here." He left us standing there in the room full of arrogance and walked upstairs, his shoes echoing like a final verdict, leaving deadly silence. I stood still, stunned. "Dad." "He feels no remorse," I whispered, voice breaking with pain and disappointment. Uncle Peter gently pulled my arm. "Let's go, Gavin." "He won't admit it. We've tried." We walked out of the mansion, cold wind whipping our faces, carrying the scent of withered autumn leaves. On the way back, the atmosphere in the truck was heavy, only the engine's hum and rain pattering on the windshield. Peter realized this fight was no longer just about inheritance, but a battle between justice and a force that had existed for years. "Your uncle's brother. He didn't just steal the will," Uncle said, voice low with pain. "He built an entire empire on lies and power. We're fighting not just one man, but the whole system he created. Money, connections, and the fear he instills in everyone around him." I gripped the steering wheel tightly, voice trembling with anxiety and rage. "But we have the truth, Uncle." "We have to continue." Uncle nodded, eyes looking out at the rain-streaked window. "Yes, but the cost will be higher than we think. He won't let it slide." In the following days, I plunged in like a madman. I contacted the hospital investigating grandfather's medical records before his death. Hospital staff refused to help. Old records are sealed, only the court can unseal them. But I didn't stop. I searched old employee lists, scoured social media, asked friends who once worked there. Every call, every search made me anxious, heart pounding, palms sweating. Find the nurse who cared for grandfather, Uncle Peter advised. She must know something. Finally, I found Nora Mitchell, the former nurse now retired in a quiet suburb. She cared for grandfather in his final months, Uncle Peter confirmed. I drove to her house alone, heart pounding under heavy rain. The road was pitch black, headlights illuminating puddles reflecting the fear in my heart. Nora's house was a small bungalow, garden flowers wilted in the rain. I knocked, rain dripping from the eaves. She opened the door, face wrinkled, white hair, eyes cloudy with age. "Who is it?" she asked, voice trembling with caution. I introduced myself. "I'm Gavin Thornhill, Harold Thornhill's grandson. I need to ask about my grandfather." She paled, gripping the doorframe tightly. "Harold. All right, come in and we'll talk." We sat in the cramped living room, the faint scent of herbal tea in the air. She poured water, hands shaking. "Why are you here?" "Harold died long ago. What do you want from an old woman like me?" I began asking, voice careful. "Do you remember grandfather's final days?" "He had heart disease, but was there anything unusual?" At first, Nora evaded, voice anxious and dodging. "Records have been sealed for years, kid." "I don't remember anything. Harold had natural heart failure, died normally." She looked out at the rain-streaked window as if afraid someone was watching. I grew anxious, heart pounding harder. "Ma'am, I know you cared for him directly. Did anyone visit at night? Any strange medicine?" She shook her head vigorously. "No, I don't remember." "Don't ask anymore. I'm old, my memory's faded." But I didn't stop. I pulled Grandfather Harold's handwritten letter and Margaret Ellis's testimony from the briefcase, sliding them across the table. "Look at this," I said, voice firm. Grandfather suspected he was harmed. Margaret said Lawrence forced a fake will signing. What do you know about his medicine? I beg you to tell the truth." Her face paled, hands trembling as she held the papers. "Oh, Lord," Harold's handwriting. "Margaret, she told the truth?" She slumped into the chair, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. Finally, she confessed, voice whispering with pain. I didn't want to remember, but I admit I switched the medicine under Lawrence's orders. He often came to the hospital at night when everyone was asleep. He gave me a special vial, instructing me to give only that to Harold because it's better for the heart than hospital medicine." She paused, voice breaking. "I suspected, but he promised worthy compensation, big money, enough to care for my sick daughter. In the following days, Harold weakened visibly, then he died suddenly. I knew I was wrong, but feared losing my job, feared Lawrence's power too much. He said if I stayed silent, everything would be fine." Then Nora retrieved an old bank statement from the cabinet, voice trembling. "Here, $500,000 transferred to my account right after the funeral." He said, "Thanks for excellent care," but I knew it was hush money. I've been tormented for 14 years, begging God for forgiveness. Can you forgive me?" Her confession left me stunned. I understood my father didn't just forge the will, but directly caused grandfather's death. I sat there, the world spinning, tears streaming uncontrollably. Dad killed grandfather," I whispered, voice breaking with shock. The image of Dad smirking at the mansion flashed back, doubling the pain. How could he? For power, for money. Memories of kind grandfather flooded back, making my eyes sting. I bid farewell to Nora and immediately drove to Uncle Peter's house. Upon hearing what I had uncovered from her, Uncle Peter put his arm around my shoulder, voice low and pained. "We have the truth now. It's time for justice to speak." We sat there under the rain outside the window, our determination burning brighter than ever. The following weeks were a whirlwind. We worked tirelessly with the lawyer, Mr. David Lee, a neutral one we hired from San Francisco to avoid any ties to Thornhill. "This is a big case," he said, eyes gleaming. "Will forgery, bribery, murder, enough to topple an empire." We filed the lawsuit at Sacramento County Court, attaching the full dossier. Grandfather Harold's original letter, signature verification results, Margaret Ellis's testimony, Nora Mitchell's statement, bank statements of transfers to lawyer Richard Hale, and the old medicine vial Nora had kept. Each document was like a bullet, but I was still anxious. What if Dad uses money and power to bribe the judge? Uncle Peter reassured, "We have scientific evidence, toxins in the medicine." Undeniable. The trial against Lawrence Thornhill opened at Sacramento Court 1 month later, drawing attention from media and businesses across the state. On the opening morning, the courtroom was packed. Reporters, business people, Thornhill employees, even politicians. Camera flashes popped incessantly outside. Uncle and I entered in simple black suits, briefcases in hand. Lawrence sat in the defendant's chair, gray suit, face impassive but eyes red. The first time I saw him vulnerable. Scott and Tanya sat behind, faces ashen. The judge, Mrs. Elena Ramirez, renowned for her strictness, banged the gavel. "Court is in session." The prosecutor, Mr. Mark Torres, opened. "Defendant Lawrence Thornhill committed premeditated murder, document forgery, bribery. We will prove he poisoned his own father to seize the company." The courtroom buzzed. Uncle and I submitted the full dossier. Torres presented each item. Harold Thornhill's letter written before death suspecting his eldest son. He read aloud, "I feel my life is threatened." The room fell silent. Next, signature verification. 100% forged. Then Nora's statement. Switched medicine under Lawrence's orders. During the trial, Margaret Ellis was called first. She walked slowly to the stand, white hair leaning on the rail, voice trembling but clear. "I was Harold Thornhill's secretary for 30 years. After the funeral, Lawrence and Richard Hale summoned me to the office. They forced me to sign a confirmation, claiming Harold voluntarily made a new will before dying. But it was forged. I typed the real will, leaving main shares to Peter, a scholarship and assets to Gavin upon adulthood. They threatened job loss, reputation if I didn't sign. I was scared, so I signed silently." She cried, "Harold was kind. He didn't deserve this. I've regretted it for 14 years. The courtroom murmured, flashes popping. My father's defense lawyer, Mr. Victor Kane, countered fiercely, but Margaret stood firm. Next, Nora Mitchell trembled to the witness stand. In a simple gray coat, gripping the rail, voice breaking with fear, "I was Harold Thornhill's night nurse at St. Clair Hospital. Lawrence often came at night unseen. He gave me a special vial instructing, 'Give only this to my father, it's better for the heart than hospital medicine.' I suspected, but he promised worthy compensation. Big money later. I switched the medicine. The next morning, Harold weakened visibly, then died suddenly. She sobbed. After the funeral, $500,000 transferred to my account. He said thanks for excellent care, but I knew it was hush money. I've been tormented, begging God for forgiveness." The courtroom fell dead silent. I clenched my fists. Uncle Peter beside me hugged my shoulder. "Stay calm, son." Meanwhile, my father was pale, gripping his chair, but silent. The defense tried to deny unsubstantiated testimony, old medicine, who proves poison. But the prosecution presented independent lab toxicology results. Cardiac toxin, high dose in Nora's vial. All counter-arguments collapsed. After 3 days of intense arguments, the court declared my father, Lawrence Thornhill, guilty on 3 serious counts: premeditated murder, legal document forgery, witness bribery. The sentence rang out: life imprisonment without parole, confiscation of illicit assets, revocation of inheritance rights for Lawrence and his children. The courtroom erupted in shouts and cheers. Uncle Peter was recognized as Harold's sole legal heir, taking over Thornhill Holdings. As police led Lawrence away, he turned to look at Gavin, eyes a mix of regret and emptiness. "Gavin. Son," he whispered, voice breaking for the first time. I stood still, saying nothing, heart aching but cold. He was handcuffed, walking out of the courtroom, his once powerful figure now diminished. Newspapers headlined, "Thornhill Trial, Justice Illuminated After 15 Years. Outside the court, flashes popped endlessly. Reporters swarmed. "Gavin, how do you feel about your father's conviction?" I bowed my head slightly, no answer. I knew grandfather could finally rest in peace. Uncle Peter pulled me to the truck. "Let's go home, son. Our future is just beginning." In the truck, I looked out at bustling Sacramento, tears falling. Grandfather, justice has come. But the cost. My father in life prison, family shattered. Made me realize, justice isn't free, but it brings freedom. After my father was sentenced, Uncle Peter officially became the legal heir and was granted control of Thornhill Holdings by the court. Once the verdict was read, the court immediately froze my father's illicit assets, the mansion, personal stocks, offshore accounts, and transferred control to Uncle. The next morning, Uncle received the chairman's office keys from the court lawyer. "I never wanted this chair," he said to me on the way to headquarters. "But grandfather entrusted it." I nodded. "You'll do better than Dad." Thornhill Holdings, the empire once built on ambition and lies, was now in the hands of a man familiar only with the smell of machine oil and wrenches. In the first week, Uncle began reforms. At an emergency board meeting, he stated firmly, "Anyone who covered up Lawrence's wrongdoing, leave Thornhill today." 12 senior executives, 3 of Dad's confidants, were fired without compensation. "This isn't revenge," Uncle told the entire company. "It's cleansing." Grandfather Harold dreamed of an honest and humane Thornhill. "We'll rebuild from there." Applause thundered. Many were moved. I stood backstage, both proud and anxious. Uncle was truly changing an empire. Peter called me to the company on the 3rd day. We sat in his new office, an old wooden desk he'd brought from the garage, no luxurious leather chairs. "Gavin," he said, eyes bright, "I need you. Junior manager in strategic development, you'll learn to lead with integrity, not power." I froze. "I'm just an electrician, Uncle." He smiled warmly. "Hands that fix wires can fix a company." Grandfather believed in you. I accepted, heart pounding, from disgrace to manager in months. I adapted quickly, hard-working and humble. First day, in a white shirt, I entered the modern office with the new Thornhill logo. Uncle changed it to a hand holding a wrench symbolizing labor. Colleagues stared. "Gavin Thornhill, chairman's nephew?" I smiled. "Just a new employee." I learned fast. Strategy meetings, project analysis, proposing green ideas from repair experience. Instead of luxury high-rises, I presented, invest in renewable energy for workers. Uncle nodded. "That's the new Thornhill." Each day under his guidance redeemed the family honor. "I'm no longer a failure," I whispered nightly, looking at calloused hands now holding a pen instead of a wrench. Uncle and I reshaped the company from operating philosophy, employee treatment to community activities under the Harold Thornhill Foundation. Uncle changed the slogan, honesty, integrity, humanity. Employee salaries rose 20%, full insurance, no arbitrary firings. "Employees are assets," Uncle said at a press conference. The Harold Fund launched, scholarships for workers' children, free repair skill training. As grandfather taught, Uncle said at the training center ribbon cutting, "Value lies in hands that create." I managed the fund, organizing classes. "Kids, don't fear dirty hands. That's strength." Students cheered. I smiled. First time Thornhill did good. Meanwhile, Scott and Tanya, stripped of inheritance rights and rejecting the new model, voluntarily resigned. They came to Uncle's office privately, faces pale. Scott, "We can't work under this model." Tanya, "Too idealistic, unrealistic." Uncle nodded. "Your choice." They left Sacramento the next week, Scott to Florida for a small firm, Tanya to New York with her husband. Their departure was announced internally. No one was surprised. It was the natural end for those who lived only for self-interest. They chose a different path, Uncle said. We respect it. I held no grudge, only relief. One afternoon, as the sun set red outside the office window, Martha, my mother, visited. She knocked, face aged, eyes weary but regretful. "Gavin," she whispered, voice trembling. I stood. "Mom, come in." She sat, twisting her dress hem. "I'm proud of you. You're strong, not swallowed by the past. I'm sorry for silent, weak years. I was wrong." Tears fell. "I loved your father blindly, overlooked you. Forgive me." I said little, just nodded silently, then walked her to the door. No hate, only the calm of one who had overcome pain. "Take care, Mom," I said. She hugged me one last time. "You're my pride." Back in the office, I looked at Grandfather's old photo on the desk and smiled. For the first time in years, the name Thornhill was no longer a burden, but pride. "Grandfather, we did it," I whispered, looking out the window. Sacramento lighting up, Thornhill Holdings glowing with the new logo. A new life began, not perfect but honest. And that was Grandfather Harold's true legacy. I decided to share my story, not to boast but to inspire. Uncle Peter nodded when I proposed it. "Go ahead, nephew." Grandfather would be proud. We organized an internal talk in the grand auditorium of Thornhill Holdings, the very place where the humiliating party had once taken place. Hundreds of employees filled the seats, from maintenance technicians to new senior executives. Stage lights illuminated a simple wooden podium, no glittering crystal. I stepped up, heart pounding like my first day on the job. But this time it was the anxiety of hope. "Today," I began, voice slightly trembling but gradually steadying, "I'm not speaking as a manager but as Gavin, the one once called the disgrace of the family." The core message I wanted to convey. Life isn't about where you're born or your starting status, but how you choose to live and rise after failure. A person's true value lies in hands that work honestly, not in titles or inherited wealth. I recounted the humiliating party, my father's voice echoing, "A disgrace to the family line." The entire auditorium fell silent. Some bowed their heads. At that moment, I just wanted to disappear. But that pain forged me. Don't let criticism define you. Let your actions speak. The lesson I learned most deeply: never let humiliation or others' criticism define you. I detailed, from childhood, Dad called me unlike anyone in the family because I loved fixing toy cars. Scott mocked, "You're just a mechanic." Tanya chimed in, "Rich kid playing dirty." Mom stayed silent. Those words cut like knives, making me withdraw. But now I understand they spoke of their own fears, not me. I once bowed my head at the party, face burning, unable to retort. But that moment taught me. Humiliation is only strong if you let it be. Stand up, as Uncle Peter did, standing in front of me, declaring, "No one has the right to humiliate a person just because of their status." I paused, looking around. Some employees wiped tears. This lesson is for anyone ever looked down upon for manual work, for not being wealthy, for not being worthy. Don't let them define you. You are worthy because you are honest, because you try. In closing, I wanted to send a message to everyone. Learn to listen and uplift those around you, no matter their position. If you see someone being humiliated, be the first to stand up, as my uncle did. In the new Thornhill, we treat everyone fairly, from security guards to directors. Listen to the janitors, the technicians. They are the heart of the company. And if you're at rock bottom, remember, your hands can fix anything, from a broken car to a